always for
Try.
calling this meeting of the Finance Committee
Interesting.
of October 18th, 2023 to order. In attendance is committee members Brenda Hastings and Bob Cotton, and filling in is board president Jim Richards. Also in attendance is Superintendent Kathleen Murphy and business administrator Jack Dunn. Our agenda for tonight is to discuss the unaudited financial reports, recommendations for adjustments to the budget, HVAC and bus bonding plan, and then at the end we will have a non-public session. I will turn it over to Mr. Dunn.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll try to move through this for you. For first thing is FY23, which is our fiscal year that ended June 30th. On a good news front, the budget wound up being $2.346 million more than you need to carry over into the next fiscal year. So you're going to see that number and the additional adequacy and some proposed adjustments for 24. And how that's derived is you have your first line of expenditures, what the budget was, what your actual, how much we had for encumbrances, their commitments that we have that carried over into this fiscal year. Utilities or any payroll that would have to be adjusted, special ed costs, contracts. And that resulted in $2.9 million in expenditures that were unspent. And on the revenue side, we had a revised budget of $96,458,000. Our actual, we had more revenue than we budgeted, $97,206,000. So you have an extra $747,000. That totals $3.649 million. Then you take the encumbrances that we took from FY22 and take out what we spent of that. That left you with $897,649 left over. So when you put all that together, you have $4.546 million, and you only needed $2.2 million for this budget. So that leaves you with an extra $2.346 million that you need to do something with. So we're going to talk about that.
What was the additional revenue? Was it one source?
So, for example, Medicaid was $400,000. All right, we budgeted. We came in at $654. So there's $254,000. You have healthcare. We had a premium that year of $656,000. Your premium this year, $89,000. So again, that was one-shot money, so that adds. Then we had reimbursed ourselves from the ESSER funds with the help of Ellen. We went back through the budget that we had spent from the prior year and qualified what would have counted as ESSER funds. And that was $424,000 worth of general fund funds that we spent that we reimbursed ourselves because they qualified for federal reimbursement. So when you add all that up, which I think I might even have a slide on that, it was like 1.5 million just for, between everything, it came to the 2.3 million. So.
Any thought on why the healthcare was so far off?
Well, one is because of the premium holiday of the 900,000, but the other piece is we are now putting into the general fund all the grants that are the entitlement grants. Not ESSER, not Perkins, but we're picking up the health for the grants. So we're swapping out salaries and picking up health. And what happens if they don't take health, and we've always tried to put people that don't take health into the grants, we may have over budgeted that. Because this year we're only at 1.4 million versus when we ended last year it was closer to 2 million. And the reason why we're having the general fund pick it up is because the grants, it is a pain when somebody changes plans. Because if the grant is budgeted to every dollar, and then somebody moves from a single plan to a two-person or two-person family or single to a family, it throws the whole grant out. Like, I'll call grant back. If there ain't enough money, you got to kind of cut something. And most of the time it has people in it. But ESSER, we did not. We every month we journalize back to the grant every expense for a person that's in ESSER, because we're not going to pick up that. And then we do it for Perkins because there isn't enough in the Perkins of people to warrant us picking up that. Otherwise, it would open up a lot of available money there that we don't have the capacity to spend in that way. So, which isn't a bad thing, but you know, we're maxed out. So, I mean, this is the highest spend since I've been here, but not a bad thing. But that has to come down, and it will for this year. Mm-hmm.
So, Jack, in expenditures, what expenditures did we not have other than just the healthcare ones that you expected? Or
Well,
were there any
I
other
pulled
things
out-
as far as,
Yeah.
where do we stand? Because we were kind of guessing on energy, I know, and utilities, and I really want to know kind of how we did on that.
Mm-hmm. So we budgeted. I have the sheet upstairs. So we budgeted
You could be
for.
approximate.
That's okay. We budgeted $450 for natural gas. It came in at $610. We budgeted $975 for electric, and it came in at $1.138 million.
So we under budgeted those items. And,
Well, the rates changed too.
rate change. Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
had,
You're going to see it in my proposal.
Okay.
It's really.
And then heading into next year, we should, I'm sure you will adjust accordingly, but.
Well, I'm on board in it now, but you're going to see it next year. Now, the natural gas I only locked into 11-month contract, but what's going on in the Middle East and all, I tried to take year by year. For the electric,
Okay.
I locked into a 3-year, but that rate went up itself 50-60%, and then the natural gas almost doubled. Because what they're doing is they're liquefying the gas and sending it overseas.
Yeah, I know, I'm not surprised, but. thank you.
So, one other question
Yeah.
on the expense side of
Yep.
things. Professional services seem to be over
Yep.
pretty significantly. Any reasons particularly?
Special ed, out-of-district costs.
Out of district costs?
Yeah, we
Okay.
spent,
That's
we
pretty good.
budgeted $750,000 for out-of-district transportation, came in at $1.4 million.
Just because it's pretty hard to predict.
Yeah, and you have a range of anywhere from $250 a day to $500 a day, depending on what it is. I have some discussions for that later on. Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
I didn't read ahead, I promise.
That's okay.
But,
No, that's-
and I don't know
but-
if you're going to address this, I'm sure somewhere along the line. When will we find out the tax valuation and rate information from the city that you're really confident on? Usually you're bringing that in about 2 days before our end of October meeting, so.
So I had called over there, because this is the first full year of the new assessor, and they had told me they would provide it on the 18th. Ironically, today's the 18th, but they're probably working late, I'm guessing. So
Okay.
we have enough of a buffer. I'm
That is
hoping
good.
if at least by next week, you get the MS1 and then we can plug it in and you'll see where things stand.
Okay, thank you.
But I do have, in the adjustments, I do have a reduction in the tax rate. So I will show you what we've come up with, and you can beat up on it.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
So that's where the year end, as I said, it's unaudited. I had asked them, this is the biggest thing when the auditors came in early September. I just wanted to make sure that this number was right, and they have not confirmed it, but we're pretty confident it is correct, so I'm going with it right now.
What's happening with those PD contracts at 70,000?
Oh, we talked about people reading ahead.
Oh, sorry.
It's not me this
That's
time,
okay.
Jack.
Yeah,
Just
we're gonna
letting
talk
you know.
about that. All right, so that was the handout you have in front of you that shows you the revenue on the left and the expenses on the right. And as you've seen, between professional services, the purchase property, the purchase services, a lot of those were over. We are, and I'm already starting to see it now as it relates to the building, lots with the HVAC, lots of repairs. I got $40,000 sitting on my desk that was unanticipated. All of that at Runlet right now. I am not shocked by this. I think we had this conversation. This equipment ran for 2 years, full throttle, and now we've throttled back to normal. And you already have equipment at end of life, and now you're just beating on it. So it's been tough. But if you take just those negative ones, they total 1.5 million. Just those overages. So.
Which form are you looking at?
I'm sorry, the colored handout. If you look on the right side, the expenses that are all in parentheses that are negative, that's 1.5 million alone. So if it wasn't for some of this other stuff, we would have been closer probably to a 2.7, 2.9 unassigned fund balance, which is usually what I would expect to be a little bit over. So some of this one time that we had this year in 23, we're not going to have next year. That's why I highlight that. So post-COVID, we'll get back to our normal predictions, I hope. Although we haven't hit this winter yet. So, and you'll see some of that. So if it's okay, I'll move on to 24, but keep in mind the 2.3 left over from FY23. So now we move to the current fiscal year budget. This is the budget that you passed on March 29th. So 100,118,000, or a 1.58% increase. Okay? For adjustments, what we're proposing between the additional revenue that you're getting and some expenditures that we see that with some one-off money we could take care of. This is our logic. And trying to beef up your reserves as you get ready to go for a bond. This is how we derived it. So I'll explain each of these and then you can start beating on it. So first thing is musical instruments for Runlet and Concord High. You may have heard about the instruments. They're 25 years old for the elementary, middle, and high. I had year-end money left over, and I took care of the elementary. And I said, if in fact there is money left over after we're all said and done, I would request from the board another 50 to handle Runlet and Concord High. So that's what that first item is. The second one is a simple one. It's a debt service payment that we under budgeted by $20,000. I look at that as a one-time because our debt goes down every year that we currently have. Third is legal, additional $40,000 in legal to cover a number of different things that are unanticipated. The fourth, snow removal. Based on our meeting with some of our staff, our maintenance staff, we are going to have to increase our contract for snow removal in order to get that done and have the buildings open. Okay,
What's our current,
186,000.
and is that for machinery or is that overtime?
That is for the outside. No, that is for an outside service to
Okay.
take it to clear snow from the door of the building and the parking lots.
And why are we doing that instead of having it the way we've done it before?
We don't have the staff.
Okay.
And it's one thing when we said staff, what would help? That would. I have even said, what if we bought different equipment? So if we don't have bodies on it, it's a problem. We're down to 6 custodians right now. So we offer this, they offered that for this year only. That's why I say it's a one-time, because, you know, that's our unionized staff, and we met with their service rep, and he is comfortable with this for this year. The RMS project, that is what you have going on, you know, between the water studies, the wildlife study, the traffic study, the architectural services. That's what I'm proposing we need. Now, a lot of those expenses, when you ultimately get your building aid, will be reimbursed. So we are tracking that. That is a whole separate project in our financial system that carries over year over year. So we have every expense when we started this back in 2017, and they consider that preparation. So those expenses are reimbursable. The PD contracts, that's a request from your curriculum instruction and assessment person.
Yeah, we have 2 proposals, you know, it kind of hurt us when we took the math coaches and we put it in Title II, remember? To be able to support that request, and as a result, it left us short, and on 2 projects, $35,000 for New Hampshire Listens to continue the restorative justice work at the high school and middle school. And so they support us in that way. The second was the project with NHLI, which is New Hampshire Learning Initiative, which is the group that's been supporting all of our schools with competencies, education, and PLCs, professional learning communities. Everybody's kind of at a different level. I mean, I'll give you an example. One school is already running professional learning communities. They don't need any assistance, but another school isn't at the same place. We're trying to bring everybody up to speed on that. And so that was also $35,000 for those two for the year.
And what did we have budgeted for that originally?
Well, we didn't have it budgeted.
We had P.
We have
P-
70, we have 80 for contracted services.
So this is another 70.
Yes, yes.
Then I put one time, because again, once the Title II money opens up, assuming that opens up next year, that's where that would have gone, but we don't
We
have it.
wouldn't have asked for it because we had it. We would have been able to deal with it in the Title II grant. And I just think those projects are really important, and we've made some great headway, so I'd like to ask you to consider that.
Okay. And next item is a new maintenance vehicle. So we have a maintenance person that had been running around in a early 2000s, 2005, 2006 Dodge Caravan for his maintenance vehicle. That vehicle went in for inspection, it's rusted out, shot. We have been purchasing used vehicles up until a couple years ago, just because it tried to make the budget fit. And I think we wound up spending more in, we get something with 20, 30,000 miles on it. We do a lot of local miles, and we wind up dumping them at 60 because they're shot. So we tried to purchase new vehicles. In this case, this new vehicle that we purchased is electric. It's an electric van. I was able to get it for $13,000 below the MSRP, and the gentleman that drives it was willing to do it, and it's been fantastic. So I had budgeted in the budget $23,000 for a new vehicle, and I need an additional 24 to buy the electric.
But you already bought it.
I did. So I was going to do it out of contingency, but I figured while I'm here, I'll try to restore that maintenance contingency. So I know they needed it, but I mean, I didn't see putting $7,000-8,000 into a 2006 van and then spending money on a used van that wasn't going to be it. But so now move on to one-time transfers into your trust funds.
This is on top of not transferring out what we
You'll
had
see on the
in
next
the-
slide, I canceled all of that.
Okay.
That's correct. Because we had said when we funded the coaches and those one-times, we said, we'll take the risk in funding from your trust funds in anticipation that the legislature would come through.
Right.
Between that and your unassigned fund balance, you're in good shape. So now we're proposing this, and here's some of the rationale. So the technology trust fund, just because technology now is, it's in the schools, and we're seeing that more and more. I've tried to maintain about a $600,000 budget in the schools. I will be honest with you, that may not be enough, especially with inflation. Devices we spent $400 for before are now $500 to $600. So you're going to see that in the FY25 budget as we have to replace the high schools up next year, and then grade 6 and 9. So that will bring that up to, I think we're going to have, we have 900,000 in there now, so that'll bring it to 1.1 million for a technology fund. You guys got
Jack, can I
something?
ask,
Yeah.
how long do those items last? Like, high school's up again next year.
So our goal is to go 4 years, because they're,
And what do we do with
throughout.
what do we do with the old equipment? Because many of it still works, although it may not have the memory or
Yep.
graphics capabilities that we're looking for. The
Chromebooks have
calculation
no-
capabilities, but what do we do with that?
Chromebooks have no value. We have a company that comes and take them, so we don't have to pay to get rid of them.
Okay.
The laptops we'll reuse to other staff if they're in decent shape, because usually these Lenovo X1s we buy, they're pretty powerful, so we can reuse some of that in lower octane areas. But then, we dump them. The only ones that we really got money for were iPads. We would get $70 a piece for those. Everything else, the keyboards, all that, screens, they're pretty much done at the end of that time period.
So next year we're buying for the sixth
Sixth grade, ninth
sixth
grade.
grade, and the ninth grade, and then we'll keep, so.
And then the teacher laptops for the high school.
But now for every year, we're gonna be budgeting sixth and ninth grade
Yes.
So,
Yep.
laptops
Yep.
or Chromebooks.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the transfer to the Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund. That's your fund that stabilizes the tax rate for the purposes of the project. What makes that up is $1 million that we put in there, and then the $976,000 balance you have on the loan we took from that fund to pay for all the switches. So if you remember, $1,220,000. We were putting in 244, and we divided that by 5 instead of doing it over 2 years. We said 5 years. With the one-time money, 976 is the balance. I put that back in. That takes care of that. We don't have to worry about it.
So what's the balance of the facilities and renovation fund now?
If you add this, you're going to be at almost 14 million. Okay. The transfer to the school building maintenance fund, that is a combination of the Deerfield expense, which is usually 85,000, and then we just added money into it to try to beef that fund up. I didn't put anything in the energy risk reserve. Special education trust fund, 1.2 million. I took the extra money that's coming in, you'll see on the next sheet, for special ed aid, added that. I also added the 26,000 we got for the EFA grant, which is the Education Freedom Accounts, which is money that we get for students that leave us. So that was unanticipated. That's where that is going. And then finally, the transfer to the instructional trust of $1,048,000. And then finally, 30,000. What's that?
What would why would we need that in the instructional trust?
Well, you have $1 million there, and we beefed it up for whatever you might need, and we can talk about that a little later.
And I think you'll hear that the math is looking at a math program. So, you know, if you do that across your grade levels, we're going to have a significant amount of money to pay for that. So
Yeah.
you're going to see that in your, but that'll be presented to you at the instructional committee too. I think they'll update you. They haven't made any decisions yet. They're meeting as a group to look at what they would like.
All right.
So the other thing, the other logic in this is you're looking at some bond projects. You're looking at potentially 2 and maybe even 3, because you have Runlet, HVAC, which you're going to hear about tonight, and then Memorial Field. So going out to the market, having strong savings, solid financials is going to help your interest rates on that. Okay? So that was part of it. Now, I flagged them all as one-time things that will not be next year. Now I'm tagging some stuff that I consider could be recurring, could be a one-time, but it will be a separate proposal in FY25. So the first is trash disposal. I think that was highlighted on the financial report. You was wondering what that was. So that went from $5,400 and some bucks to $6,900 a month. I did watch the candidate forum for the council candidates at large. I don't know if anybody had seen that, and that was a big topic of discussion, the significant increase that's coming for trash, regardless of whether it's recycled or not. So I know purple bags was a conversation too, but purple bags is not going to help us here in the district. We have a couple canisters outside the building, so.
No, I listened to that forum, but I had also known before is that our new trash contract is going to make trash disposal, and I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
Bins or bags or whatever,
Yeah.
it's going to make it much more expensive.
Yeah. So this will bring us to, I budgeted 65, this is gonna bring us to almost 85, 67, something like that. And I got the notice in June, so obviously it showed up on the financial, and that's where I'm looking to correct it. The next one is a special ed, a .75 special ed teacher. This is a request from Student Services for 1 year only based on the caseloads.
Where would that be?
That's going to be at Abbott Downing, and Abbott Downing, as we reviewed all the caseloads at all the schools, Abbott Downing picked up a number of new kids, brand new to the district, and given their caseloads, we really felt like we needed to add this position. And again, we'll review that. We'll see how that goes. I mean, we have 1 year only, but I'm gonna have to review that when we get close to looking at caseloads.
Would we mind, we just take a quick pause?
Sure.
Pause for station identification.
Quick reset.
Pause for the fact that I forgot to send hockey equipment into the back of my car.
See, I just asked her how she does it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the agenda upstairs. Did you see the agenda? Yeah, they're all printed upstairs in my office.
Well, I
I'm
haven't
trying
been
to
home,
think what's
so
in there, yeah.
they could have sent it to me today, but I don't think I
Check your full, I didn't bring my computer down.
Thank you.
No,
Okay,
it's okay.
Lucky mama's back.
What?
Lucky mama's back.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You can
Okay.
sit down if you want to continue.
Okay. Next, the high school has requested a receptionist for the high school.
Don't they have one?
This
That
is
one
that
got,
was eliminated from last year to this year. I
because she got a
Stop.
comments.
buy and got an earful of this.
Wait, so we used to have a receptionist and now we don't have a receptionist at the high school?
That's-
Anybody?
That person was moved to the commons, so they moved the registrar into that position. So they're just having a tough time
To
balancing.
that location anyway. I don't know.
Did they, who did they have in the commons previously?
There was no commons, remember we added the assistant principal?
Added the new comments.
So is the receptionist in the commons acting as an assistant to the assistant principal?
That's correct.
To Kylene,
Yeah,
to
But
the
that
assistant
wasn't-
principal, not to the new assistant.
But why wasn't that brought up in the budget? Like that we were getting rid of that position
And now we're bringing.
and now we're asking for another position, which won't be 1 year only.
well, that's why I said, it. So it's up to you, if you don't want, we can do what
I
you
mean,
want.
I want a reception at
I-
the high school, but I
Yep.
think they made a poor decision and they weren't forthright
Yeah, I
with
went in-
us in the budget.
Yeah, when I went in at the beginning of the year and I walked in, it's the person that was sitting to the left of Lisa,
Yeah,
and she is no longer there, and the registrar is there.
that's correct.
So the registrar doesn't do the things that that person did before.
She tried, but obviously she
Does-
has work to do too.
Does the registrar have registrar work to do?
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
So, what work is the former receptionist doing? Because one would assume that our students didn't increase, so the same amount of work assisting the commons folks should be there. It's just now spread among 4 people instead of 3.
Right, it is spread out, it
And
is
so
spread out.
what extra is
more.
being done? Because
I would like to see them move the person back to reception and come back to us next year and make a
Fine.
request in the budget. I don't know how others feel.
no, I think we should discuss it in the budget. I do agree with Ms. Walsh about the fact that to expect the registrar to do the reception work when the registrar was a full-time position
not a plan
before
for it.
doesn't seem like a reasonable
Or not
approach.
to bring it up
Right.
that this was gonna be a need when they were asking for that additional assistant principal position.
Yeah, because the cost is higher than the assistant principal position cost that they presented during the budget in real life. So,
We
and
can-
we
can
may have
discuss.
made the same decision, we may not have, but we would have made a more informed decision.
More to come on that,
Thank you.
okay? And then finally, the electrical increase, and then natural gas.
Pretty significant.
Yeah, yeah. We got lucky with both of those because I renegotiated those during COVID. And we had extremely low rates, and now we don't. I went as long as I could on those.
Well, nice while it lasted.
Yep, that usually is. So, okay, so that So those combined equal 6.2 million. Now I move to the revenue slide, and I show you that same number, the 116, which is the budget you passed. Then the revenue that we've received has been the unassigned fund balance, the 287 from special ed, the education freedom account phase out, and then the state adequacy. That's our number that the state has reported to us, 5.9 million.
An additional 5.9 over the 2.4.
Yes. Yep. So that brings you additional revenue of 8.6. So then what we did was we put 375,000 towards the tax rate, which brings it down to 2% on the local, 2.01 to be exact, before the assessment. And then all the transfers that we did to take care of that one time, the math coaches and all, we've negated those. We've canceled those transfers from those funds.
Do you have handy the trust fund balances?
Coming slides.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay? Just so happens to be the next one. So this is, I didn't infer that you would do all that, but so I wanted to show you, based on the budget you passed in March, I've taken out, assume the withdrawals are not gonna happen, but I assume the current deposits that were planned would happen. So there are your current balances as of today. Now, one thing I want to note on the food service, that is their fund balance. Again, that is a completely separate fund. I probably should take it out, but I wanted you to be aware because they did bring it up to me. I said, no, leave it because it's a discussion. So from an operation standpoint, I can use that money and dwindle down that fund. I cannot use it to pay student debt. That's why you're seeing the general fund pick up 35,000 in student debt. As you know, it was 61 last year. Do our best to try to keep that low.
Can we use it for outreach to students about filling out meal and free and reduced?
I have to check. They have a whole list of what's qualified and what's not. So
I'd be
can
interested,
ask. Yeah.
you know, or other
Yep. Marketing.
outreach to students who are facing food
Yep.
insecurity.
Sure. Okay. Does that help? And obviously, the biggest one there is that facilities and purchase renovation trust fund. Okay. I'll move on to the next one, if that's okay.
Do you have
Sure.
one that has it with the deposits you're proposing in it?
No, I did not do that. I could prepare that for the 30th. I just didn't want to assume. I wanted you to at least see the balances, and then if you have adjustments to make, I'll create that. But if you're comfortable with what you see tonight, I'm going to build that for you. I just didn't get time to do it, but I thought it would be important you know where they are prior to that happening. If that happens. Okay? So now, I just wanted to highlight, so this is the budget that you passed that was looking at a $105 local increase, 2.61%, okay? 35 cents or $13.77 per thousand. State, I have no control over that. That's going to be the number. So a total of 174. Based on what we proposed to you of putting the money away, doing all those adjustments, lowering, reducing tax by another 375,000, the amount would go down to 2.01%. or a 27-cent increase, or $81 on the local rate. Combined, $150 instead of $174. Okay?
What was the rate again?
2.01% on the local. And again, that's before the assessment. Assessment could come in and then that makes it even lower, but that at least gets you to a 2% local budget that you passed. And again, you were looking at a 1.58% increase in expenditures. Okay?
And what would it take, you think, to get that down to $100 rather than even $150.
So will you get it down to $100?
If we reduced it even more.
Let me play with that when you debate some of these things, okay?
Okay,
But it's $700,000 equals 1% on the tax rate.
okay.
Okay. Then I thought we'd just take a little shot for the future, just for fun. What are we starting to see? All right, workers' comp, we got our not to exceed notice from our insurance carrier. So that's going down. I'm kind of not shocked by that, considering as we wean people off the ESSER grants and the number of staff have not been able to hire. It doesn't shock me that the amount is going down. Property and liability, 72,000 or 17% increase, so that's big. You have a superintendent search that we'll be budgeting for in FY25. And then we have been told, expect a 10% increase in health insurance.
And when do we get the retirement system numbers?
I don't think New Hampshire retirement's up for 25.
So you're not gonna
Not-
change probably.
No.
Oh, I thought it was 23 and 24.
I think it's during the biannual, isn't it? Because the biannual was good. That's what I thought. I originally had on my list, and then we went.
But we had our rates, this year it went down in 23, right? And then it'll, in 24, so then it would be up for our fiscal year 25, I think.
We would need to know those rates before, and usually we do. Usually they tell you in September, right? June. That's why I mean, they went and checked for me and told me, no, it's not up,
Okay.
but
Okay.
because
No,
it
but not
coincides
for-
with the fiscal year for the state too, right?
So the new fiscal year 25, that would be a new state fiscal year, a new state biennial budget.
They just passed one July 1, so that's FY24, FY25. FY26 is a new state. Yeah, I know, it's tough sometimes with that, but, yeah, but I did
How
have it
did you
on.
arrive at the number for this superintendent search? I mean, it seems a little low to me.
Well, it kind of coincides with what we've done in the past. I mean, I have, my experience is 3 of them, and they've all been fairly light, mostly because there has not been really much of a expense for a visit, because they were local. Okay? Now, obviously, we'll debate that. If we're gonna start flying around the country, then yeah, that's gonna change. I only did it based on past experience. I think NESDEC was 20 or 25,000, and then I did a little for meals and, getting people together and printing, not a lot.
All right.
So, all right, that's how I just came up with it. Okay. And then, things to think about. Are there gonna be any bond payments that we're gonna have to deal with? New bond payments, I should say. We're gonna have the end of ESSER next September. That's it. They gotta be spent and done. I'm hoping to have pretty much everything done by June 30th of this year. So if there is any hangover, we're dealing with it for only those 3 months. You got Deerfield, which is still an open item as it relates to what's that contract gonna look like, how many kids are coming. I will probably build a budget assuming 60% of their ninth graders come. Obviously, that could be more revenue if more kids come, but I'll have that detail, and if you say make it higher, make it lower, you can do that, but, and then federally, is there anything that's coming down the road? Don't know. Just because with the end of ESSER, are they gonna repackage the money?
Jack, do you anticipate at the end of ESSER coming to the board and asking for funds to take up what has been lost there? Or is that too far out to think about right now?
No, we've started thinking about it over a year ago. We started
Yeah.
to try to wean off. I mean, some of those positions that we one-time funded this year were ones that we're planning on, because they came in through ESSER to fade
Right.
out. But am I gonna expect some type of cliff? Where I'm seeing the cliffs right now is in software.
Okay,
That's where I'm seeing it right now. But we don't have, I think we have a social worker in ESSER, and we may have a tutor in ESSER, but other than that, we have tried to wean off it, because for the first time in my tenure here, the New Hampshire ASBO sent out a survey asking, they know it's early, but what are people looking at for their FY25 budgets? I know exactly why they're asking that question. Because towns are about to get whacked.
We've already done
So we've
some
tried to
of
wean
that.
you off of it.
Of course.
We had paraprofessionals, remember, during COVID, we put extra folks in, those positions are all gone, so,
Right.
you know, we tried to do some of that. Unfortunately, in the two tutors that we have over at Abbott Downing, because they lost their Title I funds, we did use ESSA funds, because it was so important that the reading and the math tutors remain at Abbott Downing. So, like all the other schools have that. So we used ESSER funds to do that. At first, I thought I might have to ask you for one of the positions, because I didn't know if I'd have enough in ESSER, but I did, so I put both of them in. But I'm going to have to look at that, and we're going to have to decide how to handle Abbott Downing that is not eligible for the Title I
Title I.
program.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's just a little outlook for FY '25 as we begin to start that. Okay? So all right, I'll move on to the bonding. So this is this is a rehash from the 26th, just as a reminder. We had that finance committee meeting and talked about Beaver Meadow and Concord High. So I talked about the bonding process, just high level. I'm not gonna go through that. And then what we had talked about with Beaver Meadow. So as you know, Broken Ground is scheduled for next summer, and Beaver Meadow is scheduled for next summer. That was $3.5 million. They have already started doing some of the preliminary work for that, some of the wiring, and preparing that site for this summer.
Did you say 3.5 million?
Yep. And then Concord High, we brought forward to you to replace a couple units up there, and that was 1.7 million. So between those two, 5.2 million, and we planned on doing that this summer. During that meeting, you had requested to us to say what would it take to do the entire building. I had said off the cuff, based on my initial conversations, it could be as much as $23 million just for that building. So we also talked about buses. We have a bus fleet. We have several buses that are over 10 years old. And we need to do some upgrades there. So this is always a good opportunity. When we did the steam to gas, we did another $1 million in buses to try to boost the fleet a little bit. How many?
How many buses?
26 big buses and 12 small buses. 13 small buses, because we have the vehicle that we bought, the air conditioned bus. Okay. So at the time, just for the couple units at the high school, the buses, and Beaver Meadow, we were looking at $6 million. First year's payment's about $588,000. Now I update you to today. In July, you had voted to authorize to reimburse. So we have already spent this money, because we had said we would prepay it to get the discount and get things rolling. But you approved an authorization. I think, telephonically on, because I was away on vacation. And you voted that authorization, and I said we would get it. We didn't get it much into the details, which made sense, but we have 18 months to reimburse ourselves. I want to try to do it in this fiscal year, but the reason I wanted to try to hold out is to try to get everything into one package and give you time to decide what you wanted to do as it related to the high school. So that authorization's already passed, so that's one. Then you have the 1.7. That was part of the authorization to reimburse. So that's 5.2. Now, we get into the high school. To do the whole thing is an additional 16.9 million. So total, the high school is 18.6. That includes the 1.7 already. Okay? So when you, so that would be doing the entire school. Now, what we would do is not do the couple units next summer. We would forfeit and do everything in the summer of '25. This way we don't have to stage twice, and I would start working to renegotiate negotiate this lower, but negotiate an even better package, because now it's the entire school and they're not staging twice. So, do I think I could do better than this number? I do, but I don't want to go down that path until you're somewhat, it's not like it's going to be knocked in half.
Right, but that's better than the 22 you thought it was going to be.
Exactly. So, you know, they had said they still have engineers working on it, but this is what they're down to now. Okay. So then I go into the buses. I add another 100,000 in buses to get it to an even 23 million because they're like, why 22.9? I said, okay, make it 23. So when you total this up, you have the 16.9 for the HVAC, 1.7 for the other portion. That's 18.6. 3,500 reimbursed to us. 3.5 million. I'm sorry, to reimburse for HVAC. 900,000 for buses is a $23 million bond. If we did 15-year with a 10-year for the buses, because you can mix and match years, it's 2.4 million the first year payment. The 20-year payment is 2.1 for the first year. And you have in front of you the bond schedules for both 15 and 20. The right side is the payments. Maybe you see now why I'm trying to put as much money away as possible.
If we
Mm-hmm.
staged it,
Yeah.
would there be, I mean, I guess what would the difference be? Would we, in terms of costs?
Well, when you say, well, it
So if
would
we
be.
did 24, 25, 26, or,
Yeah, I think it would cost you more between inflation, you know, staging 3-4 times. I'm not doing a prepaid to buy equipment out in 2027, 2028. But right now, I'd be looking to say, I could pay you in January through March. What's my discount to pay for summer of 25? Buy the equipment now. What can you do? And I think we can shave a penny, a buck off of this. So.
I know I asked you this question before, and I know it's not really your problem, it's more a Matt problem.
Yeah.
But the only hesitancy I have is, everything gets old at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, is that better, or is it better to, you know, do it over a 5-year cycle or whatever?
Well, I guess you have to weigh. You get emails from staff about that building
Oh, yeah.
versus.
But we're gonna get those anyway.
It's true. It's true. It might be too cold when we're done. I don't know.
Yeah. But the thing is, Jack, it's not just Concord High all comes at that time. It's Beaver Meadow and Broken Ground.
Sure. And I thought about that when we did the 3 elementary schools, because all 3 buildings would age at the same time. And now you add a middle school project in the next 3 years, that equipment. Within 5 years, you have a lot of new equipment. But there's just so much deferred upgrades that you get to the point where you can't keep pushing it anymore. I don't see the advantage of waiting.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect of that obviously is, you know, kind of what we're experiencing at Runlet right now. Every year we delay,
Yeah.
maintenance cost just goes up and up and up.
Right, and there's that other factor that if we do a piecemeal at the high school, the advantage to that climate being conditioned doesn't take effect until all are
Until the
done.
whole system's in.
Until it's all done,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, then you have, when you do that, as technology starts to change, you're starting to intermix different.
I mean, this is a bitter pill to swallow.
Oh,
but
it is. It is. And unfortunately, you're saddled with it. Maybe. So, I'll just move on to the next slide just to talk about. So, you have a bond premium that you get usually from an investor. So when we sold the $12 million in bonds, they gave us $700,000 to get those bonds. Okay, you have, what are the final costs are going to be? Is there a prepaid discount that I can go and negotiate if you were to say, we're good with this number, start to drive it down, let's go with it. We're going to start to drive that down. Are there energy grants that we can pile on in addition to this? When we look at the ESSER funds that are left, can we take some more of those and pay down more against Beaver Meadow? And then, if you do have over money, when you have 1 million or more square feet, you could reprioritize what's left over. We did that for the elementary project, we did that for the steam to gas project, that's how we put a roof on the third grade wing at Broken Ground, because we budgeted 9 million, we came in at 7.7 for the steam to gas, and reprioritized that, and did a roof on Broken Ground.
So we would need to bond it all to get, you're suggesting we bond it all
Yeah.
now for
Yeah.
next summer and the summer after?
Yeah. Well, one is to get you reimbursed, we wanna get our $5.2 million back.
Yeah.
And then the other thing would be to negotiate a prepaid discount and get this price down as much as we can, lock it in as early as we can, lock that work in and have them start doing the prep work.
Are you pretty confident in the coupon rates that you're showing here? And
They told me they're conservative rates.
4 to
That's from our
4.25?
financial advisor, yeah.
So Jack, I rely on you like I oftentimes rely on my wife about finances. I'll say, what, can we afford it? You know, I mean, you work with this stuff every single day, you know?
Oh, geez.
Just
I just did a
so,
little schedule for you, just for fun. I thought I might get a question like that. So,
thank you.
this is the, you've seen this sheet before. It's not the first, and it will not be the
Glad
last,
to know.
as you
I
know.
had to know.
Okay,
You always hold something up.
so, let's show you what that impact would be on it. This is the 20-year, and you got 40% reimbursement, and you built, run it, all at the same time.
Can I just make a comment to Tom?
Yeah.
You know, Tom, I get what you're saying, you know, because it's kind of a big pill to swallow,
Yeah.
right? But in so many ways, things have been put off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in 17, when you were thinking about a school, and then COVID came, you know, you're now 6 years out to doing any project, right?
Right.
And so, unfortunately, what happens when you do that, it all comes on you at once, and that's why we see the big three, as we call them here, HVAC, the Runlet project, of course, and the Memorial Field, and yet no one can argue that any one of those three things shouldn't be done.
Absolutely. And for every email we get from a parent,
I know,
there's 24 other kids in that classroom who are,
right?
you know, suffering
Right.
as well from heat or, yeah. I get it.
So if I start under column B, and I have to do a little bit more updating, but this was to give you an idea of what that expected impact may be. This is your existing debt under column B, assuming FY '24. The new debt, see the 23 million under column D? That's the payment schedule, and that should match your 20-year schedule. It does.
Yeah.
Then you have the cumulative debt so far, which is 2 point, where am I at? That's the 2 million. Am I right there? Yeah. Then I go over the column I for the Runlet project, bringing you to 9.6 million. So as you follow that along, $300 increase.
So if we reduce them now down to the 100, then we go up another 100. That'd be like more like 400, right?
Yeah.
But that's not using any of our stabilization funds to buy down our
Correct.
debt service
Correct.
costs.
And notice I have that balance as of next year, not assuming you do this transfer. This is just what you've already approved. 12.9 million is what we expect to have in the bank next June 30. You add another 2 million, now you're at almost 15 million. All of that helps mitigate this. So, hence why I propose that you try to put money away. You look beefier for your financials, you look beefier to investors, and we can mitigate the future on what's coming down the pike. Again, this assumes the 40%, where it's over 100 million for our portion of Runlet, and the 23 million in HVAC and buses.
So 105.6 for Runlet is our portion.
And that's still the top end estimate.
Absolutely. That's the everything.
So Jack, can you run this number, spreading it out over 3 years, just for comparison for the high school?
When you say, what do you mean?
Instead of changing all of them out all at once,
Oh,
can
okay.
we,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that, and I know that will require some assumptions on you, because
okay.
we won't get I know we won't get some of the benefits of,
Yeah.
you know, throwing out a huge amount right up front as far as discounts on pricing and those type of things.
Yep, yep. Wouldn't
And-
have
And I
that.
know that will ask, I'm gonna ask you to speculate an estimate, but I'd rather have a good estimate
Mhm.
than no information,
Yep.
so.
This
My gut
assumes the
is-
debt service for Runlet is starting in '24.
Exactly. I assumed that
That
everything
seems
just happened.
unrealistic, right?
Agree. But I had when I was thinking about this afternoon, I'm thinking I might get that question, so I wanted to put something together just so you see all the impact in some way. You see a range of what that tax impact, because even if it's 3 years from now, all of it is going to be happening in some level. Might be $50 cheaper on the tax rate, but but you have a lot of good things that we talked about last night of all the growth in the city. So hopefully there's an expanded tax base, which would help mitigate this. I mean, it's just a
I
snapshot.
guess my gut is that, when you look at it over a long time like this, whether we spread air conditioning over 3 years or do it at once, doesn't really matter a heck of a lot.
Right.
Yeah, I know, I'm kinda asking that question, but I'm sitting here looking at it, instead of 304, I'm at 296.
Well, and it's more of a question of when it hits.
Right.
And if we're gonna spend more and not get as much value, but it would be good to look at this in the sense that when Runlet actually
Yes.
would
Yeah, it's easy for me to move the numbers around.
projected to
Sure.
start, because I think that,
Yeah.
just from a scary aspect of it.
Sure. No, I'd rather hit you with the worst case scenario that it all happened and once you bonded everything now. But no, it's going to be probably within that range, because as we talked about with Runlet, we may wind up doing a bond anticipation note, borrow some of the upfront costs to get started, and then roll that into a bigger bond. And maybe interest rates will be better. I mean, as you know, when we refinanced the elementary schools, we saved $445,000 a year, and that was already a low rate to begin with. So,
But this
Yeah,
is the worst case scenario.
yeah, that's assuming you went out and borrowed everything coming up right now.
And that we didn't use the stabilization fund to.
Right,
sort of-
you didn't do stabilization, and we didn't negotiate anything. Just have at it and go. Yeah. But I can put a stage in and say, that's where I think we could start going. I know if they go out 2 or 3 years, I think they're gonna be coming to me at 5.5% interest rates. Because when I've asked them that before on that's what they were at.
When we talked about doing Broken Ground and doing their HVAC,
Yeah.
and then we knew that we had a possibility of using ESSA money to help defray some of Beaver Meadow, right?
We did $1 million.
Right, $1 million.
Yeah.
Didn't that leverage you to a better price?
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
thought you.
And if
I
I
can't
tell them I'm
remember
gonna
the
pay them
number.
now
Yeah.
for next, I mean, they want to get business in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And I've had the conversation with HMFH about the construction market. They are seeing some softening,
Yes.
which is good.
You said that
And
last night.
we've always said, let's just be ready. That's all we can say right now, be ready. Not ready to, go with anything. With the HVAC would help to get that ready for 2025.
Will you get the same leverage if you put the high school off?
You mean if I stage it?
Yeah,
No, I don't
That's what
know
I'm
if it
worried
would make
about.
sense to pay 3 years in
right.
advance.
They might.
I mean, you'd be taking risk, but I don't know if
Yeah.
we were gonna wanna
Yeah. Yeah,
start making payments on equipment 3 years down the road.
right.
I guess
I don't know how people would feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
the
I'd rather-
question is, does the committee want more information, or do we wanna make a recommendation to the full board?
I'm ready to make a recommendation.
I think I'm ready too.
Me as well.
Mr. Richards?
We'll let Mr. Croteau take over.
Okay, but if you have more information requests, we can give them now to Mr. Dunn before it comes to the full board too. I think we wanna see those
Did
other
you put a
Oh, yeah.
debt
motion,
service.
did you put a motion together for them?
Not for this, I didn't. No, not for the HVAC. I wanted you to,
Okay, I
you know,
thought we
talk
talked
that
about
out
doing
and
that,
see,
yeah,
and,
okay.
you know, I will, hearing what I'm hearing, I will put that stuff together, but if you're saying, we wanna start pushing the board to go full bore and start that financial planning, that's what I'm looking for, if you're comfortable with wanting to do that.
And I assume Matt will be at the board meeting so that we can have that other piece of information coming from
Right.
him.
So you're saying you wanna wait until this committee gets back together again in November and then bring it to the board in December?
It's up to you. I am
Or-
fine with whatever you're comfortable with,
Or-
because all you're gonna be doing is telling me, okay, get started. There's a whole bond process. Your simple votes don't start that. I'll get the bond council to get the motion and get all that going. I just need that as committee to say, start putting the plan together to do all of this.
But they still have an opportunity, even after you do that, to say, whoa,
Oh, yeah.
time out,
Oh,
okay,
100%.
all right.
Yeah,
As
I
long
just
as
wanted,
they
I'm
have-
trying to get an idea where you're
Right,
thinking.
so you're gonna bring
Stage it
them
or
more
go.
detail with all the,
Absolutely, yeah.
okay.
We got a lot more to work through,
Yeah.
but
And Mr. Cotton, what's your thought?
My thinking is we bite the bullet and do it at once. Doing it at once.
I'm a proponent of doing it all at once. I know it comes with some difficulty, but I think it outweighs the difficulty.
I am as well.
And then so am I.
okay. You wanna put that in a formal motion
Or do you wanna,
to recommend that the board,
I hereby
Direct
move
it.
that
There you
the finance committee recommend to the full board that we move forward with the high school air conditioning project all at once.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And it's seconded by Mr. Croteau.
and you're good with purchasing buses as well?
And the extra bus.
Okay. Buses, which we'll talk about.
hold on,
Any further discussion?
purchase bus, hold on, Bob, and second was
Mr.
Tom.
Croteau.
Tom, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Unanimous.
we did the tax and debt service on that, give me an idea.
Can I ask one more question? Do you still want some information that you just asked for to us to,
No, we'll let it go to the board and let them discuss it overall, just not me and everybody else. And that's
but do you think that would be helpful for us to have for you, when we do go to the board? I wanna make sure we plan that out. so
I was
that-
planning on doing it anyway, I'm just telling you that
He's gonna
now.
do it.
I'm gonna show you
Okay.
where you can
Alright.
say, alright,
Okay.
what if it was
Alright.
2026? You know, because especially, the biggest thing is Runlet, when does that one get
Yeah.
pegged? This one isn't as big of a deal, and the reason I did 15 and 20 is because lifespan, they say, is 20. I can't bond more than the lifespan.
Right.
So, you know, that you still have to decide on with 15 or 20, but you don't need to do that tonight. I'll put all those different models together, we'll talk about where your debts are falling off and what's coming up, and you got time, we'll put it together. I just needed that, where to go with it, so, okay? All right, so proposed motion, if I move on to now, the big thing, which was the budget. So this is based on the adjustments that we just proposed to you. That's what this would approve. Now, I already know the reception thing, I would just readjust and put that money into the instructional trust or wherever you wanted it, whatever you wanted to do, because that's allocated in this. But this is what I propose to handle that, but now it's up to you to discuss.
I'm not sure, you're basically saying that we're saying no to the reception. You know,
I'm
this year.
assuming you'd rather wait
expenditures for
till,
this year.
for this year, yeah.
I don't know that I said that, because,
No, I interpreted it, sorry.
no, but I mean,
I
like,
said it.
Okay.
yeah, I was more looking at the budget that we will be discussing in January. You know,
Well,
the thing is, if we need it and you're going to add it next year, and we need it right now,
Do we have somebody in mind for it? I mean,
No.
is this something we have got
No.
hired for?
Why don't I do this? Can I pause for a minute and let me move on? We can come back. You want to do a non-public and then come back for this vote?
I actually would like to have some more discussion about the proposal.
Yeah, okay. So, in non-public, I'll tell you some other things that might affect that, but go ahead with
Okay.
stuff that you can.
I
Sorry.
guess, and I've talked to the superintendent and the assistant superintendent about this, which is, you know, my concerns that we are not investing enough in addressing the shortfalls and where our students are learning. I am certainly not the educational expert that we employ, but, you know, based on my reading, what seems to be working in other places is more intensive tutoring. And I'm wondering if and I know hiring is an issue, but whether we're investing enough in tutoring to help get scores. It's not just about scores, it's about kids and helping them catch up. And whether we should, instead of putting additional money in the instructional trust, be providing additional money for tutoring.
So, could we go in a non-public then for 5 minutes and discuss it?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm gonna put the motion on here, and I'll ask Josh to step out for a minute. We'll do quick, and then we'll get to the,
So, can we, I will
number
move
A.
that we go into non-public to under RSA 91A3, Article 2, dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, and RSA 91A3, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Cotton,
Yes.
Mr. Croteau,
Yes.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We are going into non-public, but we will be back on your television screens in a little bit. Back in public session, can I have a motion to seal the minutes?
So,
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cotton. Ms. Hastings? Yes. Mr. Croteau?
Yes.
Mr. Cotton?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh says yes.
we're back, right?
Yes, we're back.
May I ask a question?
Yes?
At least for when it comes to the full board. I'd like to know a little bit about this whole math program we're gonna spend $1 million on, or the switching over the math program that we're talking
We're
about?
not there yet.
Okay.
We're not absolutely there yet. We have a committee of teachers across the district that are looking at it. Yeah, they have work to do, and looking at programs, effective programs, so they have work to do, so we're not ready to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
When asked what we would spend that money on, that's one of those to anticipate coming down the pipe.
Okay. Can I ask a question and then follow up on that? Is the system we have now not working?
There are people who feel that it's not an effective, program.
And how long have we had it? You know, when we get into full board,
Come tomorrow night, we can talk about these things.
I unfortunately won't be in.
It's been there for
I won't
quite
be
a
in
while.
the state,
Oh,
unfortunately,
sorry.
state tomorrow night, so.
We can talk about
You
it.
can talk.
It's been quite a
Always
while.
available.
I'll have to get the exact number, but, I mean, Brenda was using it when she was teaching, so
Okay.
it's been around for a while.
She hasn't been out of teaching for that long, so.
I'm old.
5 years now.
Mr. Dunn, if we were going to
Mhm.
bring the tax rate further down under 2%,
Mhm.
where would you take, say, add another subtract another 125,000 from what you're putting away?
Where would I
you
take it from? I would, let me look at my transfers.
What was the question again? I'm
If we
sorry.
were going to bring the tax rate increase under 2%, and so add, decrease the amount to be raised in local
Right.
taxes by 500,000 as opposed to 375,000.
I'd take it out of the instructional trust. I'd reduce it there.
Can I ask what we're doing with the special education expendable trust fund?
Right now, I'm trying to beef it up because of out-of-district placements and out-of-district transportation.
Didn't we start a new program for, students requiring services out at the old Garrison School?
Oh, you're talking about the MAP program?
Yeah.
Yes, and that is
keeping
that is an
some
ESSER right
students-
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so is that keeping some students from being out of district placements?
It is,
Okay.
it is. I do, when we have another session, we'll talk about transportation. I've had some ideas.
Transportation is what it is?
I wanted to get into that tonight, but we won't have time. We'll schedule that maybe for the 30th for a couple minutes, because of some of the challenges we're dealing with on transportation that I can't get into at the moment. So, okay. But that's where I would, if you wanted to drop it 125,000.
So we have 1.7 million in there, and you're proposing another 1 million.
900,000. If you took the 125 out of there, a little over 900,000. Yep.
And
Again,
how
that's
much equals a percent drop?
1% is 700,000.
I feel like we're gonna be asking our taxpayers to do a lot in the next few years, and we received some additional funds from the state, and that they should, we're putting most of it away to help avoid, to even out taxes and the thing, but we should try and go as low as possible this year. But I don't know how anyone else feels.
Well, I had asked earlier if we did that and brought it down to $100, but next year it's already going up to going up
It's
300.
if you approve this, it'd be 150. If we take another
Right.
125, I'm gonna tell you that in a minute. I thought I would,
But then
Good
next
break.
year jumps up more because
Well,
we
not,
didn't put as much.
Well,
Well,
no,
yeah, I
not
know,
because
it's
we're
true.
not, it's not, because we're not using trust funds to fund our budget, we're not spending additional funds we got.
That's true.
So it's,
That's true. Okay.
it isn't that cliff effect that I know Mr. Dunn worries about, because we're not spending the
But
money.
it's there, right?
Yeah, we have it in reserve accounts, we're not spending it.
and they're the funds that we have to go to you for, so it's not as if, you know, it's now money that we can spend here. We're gonna come to you for it, and it does look strong, and it's commented on our, when we get an opinion from S&P or from, the other major, credit agency, that how strong we have with savings and the financial stewardness. It definitely helps when an investor goes out, for that.
Pam, I like your idea, but there's a but. This board in my 10 years around here has always tried to keep sort of a level increase. And by using the trust funds, we've been able to do that. And if we are anticipating, and we are, some extremely high expenditures in terms of middle schools, Memorial Field, and just other incidental roofs and HVAC systems in the next few years, does it give a false sense of security that we're down this year and then we're back up again?
I
So-
mean, as a taxpayer, I would rather have a year where I get less of a tax increase, even if it's gonna, you know, it's not like it's going down because we're playing monetary games. We got extra money. I think we should just, we're putting a lot away to sort of smooth the budget in the future. You know, I just think we should share a little bit of that back. It's not like we're using trust funds to balance this budget anymore. It, you know, it's balanced with our revenue, and we still have excess.
So you're suggesting that we maybe take 125,000 out?
Yeah, and bring it below 2.
You'd be at 1.86. Again, this is before the assessment actually
Yeah.
happens, and you'd go down 2 cents. So 13.69 down to 13.67.
And what does that do for a year for the taxpayer? That gets us under, what,
Yeah,
you're
you'd
at
be-
150 now, an increase of 150 with what you propose.
You're talking about the average 300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like 148, 149.
I mean,
Yep.
part of it is that our overall tax rate on the state side is going up, and they're sort of giving us the money on the other side that they used to lower the statewide property tax rate the last time. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
of, you know,
I mean, what you're asking for is not a lot of money in
no,
a
I mean,
million,
I'd go higher if
you
people
know,
want to do that.
$112 million budget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm not opposed to it. It does seem like it's a bit of window dressing, though, to a certain extent. I mean, it's not significant to most taxpayers, I don't think.
But this year, and for the discussion with the whole board, Jack, can you
Yep.
please just also add what the local city tax is going to do as far as an
Yeah,
increase this
I
year?
feel
I
like
think they're 3.95.
Yeah, because the taxpayer gets all of it.
right.
And so that's why, you know, when it comes before the board, I would not be adverse to the reduction that Ms. Walsh is proposing.
I agree.
You know, I think I think you're right. I think it does send a message that the board is trying, and knowing that there are some big costs coming down the road. So,
And inflation if we take a look at how much we're increasing the budget, you know, my goal always is that we're always increasing our budget no more than inflation was. We're actually doing, you know, the taxpayer doesn't really always feel this way, but I think we're doing pretty well when I look at our budgets over 10 years compared to inflation over 10 years. Because inflation is how much electricity prices go up and the gas prices go up and your healthcare prices go up. And those are all the things that contribute to our budget. And that's my approach to this, is why it's always my goal. You know, big expenditures throw a monkey wrench in that sometimes, but, yeah, if you could bring that information, I think at the board discussion at the end of the month.
Do we want for different varying amounts? Or I just put out a number, but do we want to see if we went down the full percent, the 700,000?
Brenda asked, what was it again you wanted to know? If it went to where?
The full percent, to get it down to like 1%.
Oh, yeah, you got,
It's another, it's
it's 700,000, yeah.
Do we want to see both of those, or do we just want to see
So it'd
under
be
two?
700, it would be $1 million on
Right.
top of what we have on this chart.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Then you'd have to see where we were taking out
Yeah.
of, that's the thing we'd have to discuss.
Yeah, 125,000 is painful, is the million.
Oop, sorry. Yeah, that would take you down to .89 or $13.54, which would be 12 cents more than last year if you went down 700,000. And again, that's before the assessment. I don't know what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, and that,
Yeah.
we'll have to,
Yeah.
the assessment can make some
So-
changes here.
And you should have that soon.
And yeah, they said the 18th, which that's why I left the buffer. That's usual though, mid-month, and then, you know, they have to still reconcile and make sure everything's right before they send it over. Okay, so, up to you.
I mean, it's hard to know without the assessment. If the tax base didn't grow as we anticipated, then I would want probably an even bigger number.
Now, the difficult thing with that I won't know, is what's the real growth, which
Right.
that's what you wanna know. And that I won't know till November. And
Right.
so a couple things. All this great work we're doing is for naught if we don't have 7 votes in the affirmative on the 30th. If we don't have that, you give $8.3 million back, and hold on to your hat for next year's budget. I can tell you that. That's one. But two, I don't know what all the detail. They could tell me the valuation went up 9%, 7%. Is that market? Is it? They don't know. Until they produce the memo to council, which then they send to me and we send that to you with the letter. I won't know. But the critical thing is, I'm hoping to try to get, and obviously the board has to do what it has to do, but when we do it Monday night, I gotta have minutes, everything signed off by the clerk. Everything has to be done, uploaded the next day. Because by November 1st, DRA needs it, because by the 8th, it has to go to the printers for the tax bill. And once we do our thing, the city has to do its thing. So it is a tight timeline. I know I felt bad when I talked to them, but I don't have a choice based on schedules. And I know we need to address this, because this has to be dealt with.
And we
We all
are
know that.
confident that of our attendance on the 30th.
We are.
Good.
As far as I know, we only have one unavailable,
Yeah.
one member.
I'm gonna move that we reduce the amount we're gonna recommend be transferred into the instructional trust by $125,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No, I'm in favor.
And I might revise that upward
That's okay.
when we get
That's
to,
So I'll have the minutes reflect this motion with that $125,000 change, just because I can't change
Yeah.
that quickly. Not that good yet, but I'll get there, okay? And then quickly, I'll move on, because I know,
do you need a vote on that as a
Yeah.
recommendation to the finance committee?
yeah, that's what I
Recommendation
was,
to the board.
Yes.
yeah.
So I will move that the finance committee recommends to the school board to pass the 2023-24 fiscal year budget with all funds totaling $112,560,303, with a general fund budget of $106,341,128, appropriating $64,009,089 in local taxes and $6.98756 in state taxes, inclusive of the following deposits and withdrawals to existing funds or expendable trust funds. Deposits, vocational capital reserve fund for an amount up to $175,681. Facilities and renovation trust fund for an amount up to $2.144 million. And 1.97.
Yep.
6 million.
Mhm.
Food service fund for an amount up to 35,000. Renovation and maintenance trust fund for an amount up to 85,196, plus 528,902.18 cents. Special education expendable trust fund for an amount up to 1,280,692. Instructional materials trust fund for an amount up to $1,048,624.79.
Less
Less.
125.
So I think it's.
Minus
Well, I think-
$125,000.
Yeah, I think it's 102,362,479.
It's okay, all that's gonna change. The
Okay.
general fund's gonna change now, the
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'll reflect what your wishes are.
Technology Innovation Trust Fund for an amount up to $200,000, and also inclusive of the following withdrawals from expendable trust funds to fund appropriations: CRTC Vocational Trust Fund for an amount up to $200,000. And we recommend that the board authorize the administration to make any adjustments to the FY24 budget numbers to reflect the intent of the board. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did you second that?
I did.
Okay, and then for the budget schedule, so there are the dates, pencil them in. Okay? Monday, Wednesday, 5:30, all meetings except for the 2 public hearings. And then the last one would be to finalize the budget. I left that at 5:30, but if you want to make a change, just open the site consistent. And I know the public hearings were more to allow people to come out. But I left them at central office, Millbrook. We'll fill in those agendas along with, we'll come up with a proposed agenda and let the committees beat up on it, okay? But I thought we'd do a big opening on the 7th, that's a Wednesday, and off to the races. I highlight the meeting that I just mentioned. We might have, 8 there, but remember, they have to be in the affirmative. If I have 2 no's, so that's happened, it's all no good. So, that ad went in the paper, it also was posted downtown at the library here and on the website. And that's the end of the meeting, and non-public, we're not gonna do that, so I am good.
So I'm going to ask this question. We've had a phone call vote in years past and in recent history, and we can't do that this time for this?
You can, if we feel that we wanna have all 9 board members here, sure.
Well, I'm just,
You can
in the
connect somebody
event we have one
telephonically.
negative, I would be happy to have more possible positives.
Time difference,
Mine.
Mr.
Just trying to think what time.
3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you don't mind if we call you?
10:30? 5 hours?
5
I,
hours.
It's 5
I-
hours.
yeah,
So
I'm
if
totally serious about that. I mean, I've seen it happen when we didn't have the votes.
Oh,
Yeah.
11 o'clock.
That's when it starts.
Yes.
Right, by the time we get to the vote, it could be much later.
They have good.
Well, something to think about.
Well, we did, we put a stress on everybody, so everybody is yes, but like, you're right, it's a week away, so,
Oh, you've talked to everyone?
yeah.
Okay,
We will.
then I'm
I'll
confident
leave
in
my
that.
phone on.
We have
If we need to call, we
You
will.
give me a call and I'll.
Okay.
join.
Actually, yeah, okay. We'll take a look at the procedural requirements
Yeah.
or something like that.
And you're here still too, right? Yeah.
I'm here
The
on the 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll be back.
And that's at what?
I'm gonna be back.
That's at 8
Yeah.
o'clock at night,
I
right?
might even have Bridget do another check, just to make sure.
That's currently scheduled at 6 PM.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Should we go earlier? You think it's gonna be a long one?
Well,
I can't, I've already put it in the paper.
Posted, we
I have
need to
the
do.
10-day
Right,
requirement.
when it- because it was a special meeting, we better put in your ordinance like at 6. That way they would, opportunity.
No, I think that's fine.
Did we still need to go into another non-public?
I didn't want to keep you, I'll deal with it next week. I don't think I have anything pressing, but I'll leave it up to you.
Do people have a few minutes, or?
I do.
I got time.
Yep, okay. Is there a motion to go into non-public?
Yes.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
roll call. Ms. Hastings?
Aye.
Mr. Croteau?
Aye.
Mr. Cotton and I vote aye. We will not come back from non-public. After this, we will just adjourn, so thank you, everyone.